Pew 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 pew. Pew 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 pew. Don't mind me, just testing the audio. I should take care of it. Don't mind me, just testing the audio. Okay. That should do for now. Let me increase myself a little bit. Just to rather do this every time than risk talking for 30 minutes to an hour and then find out it wasn't high enough volume or too high or whatever. All right. So, hello, welcome. Today we're doing a portfolio review for Cat's Liberty Stake. Very, very interesting story, very good piece. Cat, really good job. So far, this is a very ambitious piece, which means it needs a little bit more time, a little bit more work. This is what I would call a good start, a solid first pass. Let's see what we can do to actually turn this into just a glorious portfolio piece that would really stand out, like on the global kind of arena, the global stage. I think this definitely has the potential to be just that. So we have the anatomy over here. We have all these different angles. You know, that beauty shot. All right. Okay. Cool. Nice. Okay. So let's start with some anatomy details that I would like to see. Overall, the anatomy on this is really good. On this base structure. One thing that bothered me is the striation on the neck muscles over here. We don't really see them to that degree. Usually, I mean, it is there, but it's kind of smooth for the most part on this kind of horse. It is somewhat there, but you know, that's hair. See if we can find neck on these guys. See, mostly the form is there. The lines are very subtle, so I would probably do a kind of blur or smoothing pass on it, just because it's very visible. But really, the form that I'm looking for is gonna be this kind of cylinder that goes, all those neck muscles go and connect to the shoulder area, right? That's really the form that I'm looking for on this, rather than those lines. Right, we have a lot more, the most important medium forms here. And if you remember, we were talking about where kind of the medium forms are going to be the area of the process that I think you need to do the most work on. And I think that once you have that down, your skill set is going to be very well rounded when it comes to modeling. Okay. So yeah, I would smooth this out and just kind of define the overall flow of the neck in that kind of head towards shoulders kind of line. I'll look at those because those are more visible. You know, if you look at this image up front and over here, they're much more those kind of lines are much more visible than the lines going up and down. Right? That's one. The hind legs definitely still bother me, especially on this side. You don't really see it here in the dark, but over here is very clearly visible. We have this big lump over here. On this side, you know, the knee, for this breed, the knee is a little bit sunken in and they have those muscles coming in, but you want to make sure you don't over exaggerate it. And the on here is definitely off. I think the bump would start somewhere around here and it would kind of even out as it gets to that kind of heel area, right? So I would definitely spend a little bit more time on this leg in particular. Curious if we can even see my mouse. Yeah, we can. Okay, good. So, yeah, just tweak this. There's a little bit of an extra pass on that anatomy, especially the hind legs. Especially the hind legs for sure. Just in those medium forms. And one last thing that I would like to see you do is on that tail is just kind of one form, and you added that surface noise, which is fine over here, but especially towards the edge, even if it's cut off, you know, we want to see some kind of breakage on that silhouette so it doesn't look like just one form. You know, so even adding a couple of flyaways, just breaking off here and there, I think would go a long way. Just kind of embedding it with like an extra two or three kind of smaller pieces. They just kind of break off the silhouette a little bit. If we have anything like that, I'll set up here. Yes, this guy. Although this is a cutout, so you don't really see it, but even on this cutout, you can kind of see that it's breaking off. See if we have any more with the tail kind of short. And of course, it's going to be against the shadow, but you can kind of see that some of them are breaking off here. There you go. Interesting. This particular form, we see this kind of repeat. Is this the same exact guy? Maybe. Maybe. It's interesting. We have that main form of the tail, and then some of those forms kind of flopping down right there. And this might be our boy as well, or a similar one, where we have that main form of the tail, but then we have a couple of them kind of breaking off and doing their own thing, you know. So might be worth to take a look at that and just kind of see. We have a little bit of that breaking off here, a little bit of a line. This is a great example right here. So let's take a closer look on that tail. See, like there's some forms, and again, you don't have to do every single strand, right? Let me zoom in. You don't have to do every single strand, but even if you just simplify this into one form, this into one clump, this into one clump, and this into one clump, just have a couple of them, I think that will go a long way in selling the look for the horse. Yeah, if you on the anatomy, if you notice those extra kind of bones and protrusions happening, especially around the joints, you know, and definitely accentuating them a little bit extra, I think will go a long way, because right now it's a little bit smooth on those ankles, on those joints rather. And the face is looking really, really nice. I love the face. Yeah, that's what I got for you on the anatomy for the second pass. Next, I want to talk about the gas mask. Okay. So I think we had, yeah, those references on here, and they were a little weird to me because I wasn't sure what's exactly holding it in place up here. I guess it was just tied around the mouth on this model, but I couldn't find this on an actual horse, even on your references, without all of the supporting straps, you know, all the supporting straps. So I found this image right here, and notice how it has all those extra straps on there, and I really feel that would I really think that would help kind of convey this thing kind of being there. So just adding those extra straps and holding it in place. Um, I can probably post this particular image because I don't think I've seen it on your references. But I think that image would really help out because even your images that you have, that they have something that's holding it in place. And the only ones, this particular one that sells the exact model that you were kind of modeling, doesn't have it, but it's not on an actual horse, so I don't know what's going on there. You know what I mean? Um, and this would it just looks more stable like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and post this as a reply on your thread if you want to use that as a reference. Um, One other thing I wanted to discuss on that mask. I'm getting lost in my there, or rather, I want to come here. So the kind of the pipes, the air pipes, right? And they got that flow to them, that nice and smooth flow. And for you, it's very angular, very very angular. And I'm not sure why. It's possible the segmentation that you had set up. You built the whole segment or something, or I don't know. I'm not sure why, but I would definitely redo that and just make sure that it's nice and smooth because it just kind of flows a certain way. Some of that detail. Sure, I would look at the references. Let me know if you need any help with that. I'm not sure why it's angular like that, but it shouldn't be. Yeah, that's that on the gas mask. Regarding the straps overall on the body, um, if we look at straps in general, you notice they're very straight, right? Generally speaking, they're very straight. That's because they're kind of they're tight, right? They're wrapping around and they're holding something in place, so they're going to be very tight. So they're not going to be very wobbly. Like you see all this wobbliness going on over here, a lot of wobbliness, and it's kind of uneven. That really takes away from the kind of the impact of the piece. It's very wobbly. We want to see a nice straight line to just kind of indicate that the strap is there. It's a manufactured piece, right? It's not like something that's growing, like a tree that's going to be very wobbly. It's been cut, precisely, and it's tight against the body, just kind of wrapping around. So I would definitely, you could kind of spend the time in trying to eyeball it and get the wobbliness away, or you could just redo them. It's up to you. And again, on this, I'm happy to help if you need help on that, but just kind of make it less wobbly. The coloration and stuff on this is nice though. Something else that's very wobbly that bothered me was the antenna. So you have it kind of breaking off 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and it ends up looking very kind of wobbly. And I'm not really getting that from here, but you don't really have references for the antenna. But I mean, I've looked at enough antennas to kind of know that if they do have a bend, it's usually going to be in one spot and it's going to be an angle shift, and then the rest is going to stay the same, or it'll just honestly just be straight to begin with. If nothing else is this damaged, there's no reason for this to be that damaged. And even if you have a slight angle, just one break and not have the whole thing kind of look soft and serpentine, you know. So yeah, I would definitely address the antenna. Oh, on the wobbliness in general, the bags as well. It just looks like you just wanted it to feel more organic, so you just kind of pushed and pulled a little bit on those bags, and it looks wobbly, like there isn't weight on it. It's just kind of floating. Let me see if you had any references for saddlebags. You did not. So that, or at least not here. I didn't see it. So, but yeah, I would definitely bring up some references and try to kind of convey. There's a certain look when bags are, the horse's torso itself is very, it's very round, Hey, how's it going, Brian? It's very round, and then the bags have stuff in them, and they kind of are hung at on the center, close to the spine on here, right? And then they just kind of hang down and sideways. So there's a certain way the weight distributes. So just kind of the wobbliness in here. You want to find a balance between the way it's cut and then the way gravity affects it, and then just random stuff that disrupted it and disturbed it. And it's gonna come back to getting some good references on it rather than improvising. Overall, the silhouette is good. It's just small kind of details, and I almost want to see some wraps on them or straps. I don't know if you had any. Not really. Yeah, some small detail here and there that would really help, in my opinion. All right. Let's see here. The mud base. So overall, it looks nice from here, but when we get closer to it, it just looks too deep, too steep. You know what I mean? Like I understand these are supposed to be tank tracks, but it's too much. It's too much, especially if we look at the up close ones. It's just too much. I would probably um, grab that whole subtool and just squish it down, like just scale it on the vertical down a little bit, just to squish it in a little bit as a starting point. Um, and besides that, I definitely want to see some more small details and debris and color variation and small water pools like puddles, stuff like that. Um, let's see, I did have some stuff here. I was looking at, because I know you were like looking at, if I remember correctly, like French mud specifically. I can't find the color, but ignore the horrificness of the scene. But just this land looks war torn, right? And that's kind of the idea. That's what you want to absolutely sell on every front as an artist if this is the piece that you're doing, right? So we have like bits of woods that are broken, right? Some sort of structure that was broken, as well as natural, wood that was broken from a blast or something, and a bunch of small stones and stuff like that. You can see this all over. Just a few small bits. It doesn't take much. Um, and overall, on the mud itself, you have big forms, medium forms, and small forms, right? And that's something that you want to capture for sure. The big, the small, and the medium. Um, there was one, over here, and also having some puddles as well will help break it up. You don't want it to be too uniform because then it doesn't feel kind of realistic. You can have some grass here and there growing through the mud. Just really selling it. Some roots here and there, some broken bits. You just want to add some variation to it. And just some variation. And of course, color variation as well. It's not all going to be the same color. Um, Looking at like World War II mud, some bits and then some puddles here and there. You know, just looking at more of these references and really capturing the feel for it. The feel for it. You know, that's what I mean by like small puddles, small gatherings of stuff, and different color variations. We have this darker soil, this lighter soil, and then we have some grass, right? And random bits all over. Random bits all over. Just a little bit. And again, you don't have to detail them out. Just kind of implying them with some spray and noise and stuff like that, just to break it up so it's not too even. It's not too uniform. It's not one color besides the kind of blood over here. And I know that you do have some noise over here, but it's still too uniform. It's still too uniform. So definitely a pass on that would help, in my opinion. Um, What else? This base I think can go altogether. I think just the mud itself, once you flatten it, and you can use Boolean to just flatten that, and that could be the base itself, the mud, and you don't need much more than that. Um, what else? The mud on the hooves. Um, I would keep this mud the same material as the horse's skin, and then have the transition where the color is exactly the same as it goes up there. That way, because generally when something's completely covered in mud, um, like let's take a look at that wheel. Like if that wheel like kind of touches it, it basically becomes mud. You know what I mean? It just completely. Um, this is a great example. I've been in mud like this, so but basically you just become a mud elemental wherever the mud touches you, and it becomes the same kind of texture and pattern and material and color. You know what I mean? It becomes indistinguishable. It's almost like you rose up from the mud, and that's kind of what you wanna um, horses. Yeah. So just wherever there was mud, you want it to be the same, exactly the same. Mm. What else? So I want to touch on the painting a little bit. Overall, the color variation looks really nice to me. Um, this flag paint does not look as good. It looks like kind of like a rushed last minute thing, because it looks like a ZBrush brush. There's a certain way that I don't know what kind of paint they would have used in this setting. Um, but generally speaking, I was looking at the closest reference I could find is like some Native American war paint or stuff like that. Again, I don't know that that's what they would have used, but in general, when you look at um, war paint or whatever it is, right, the material just kind of sticks, um, and it has a kind of like a hard but wobbly edge to it, right? But it's just kind of I imagine that they were like finger painting it, right? Uh, and on this one, this is a really good image as well, and it just has a certain kind of understand. Like, you kind of have to understand how paint looks at first. It doesn't stay um, completely the same. And this is overall, by the way, this is a great reference for what you should do, in my opinion, on the fur itself when it comes to painting, right? Because through the fur, we kind of see the dark skin in between in darker areas, and then we have the fur itself and this kind of extra layer of detail. You notice how wherever the fur was, um, when it was painted, like if it moves a little bit, then all of a sudden it breaks that up a little bit. So you can see how some of this fur, maybe it was more flat, and then it rose up a little bit, and now the white is kind of invading the areas that are more dark. For example, more red, and see, there just gets all this wobbly, even though we overall get a sharp edge. Okay, so this is a great reference image for something like that as well. Again, on the fur painting, I think you did a good job, as far as I could tell. Um, but yeah, I would definitely add, because it still looks flat, especially on the lighter areas. I would still add a little bit more kind of noise to it, just on that second pass. Um, Speaking of painting, I would love to see more variation on in edge wear, especially on the leather and radio parts. It just feels a little bit flat here. So it feels somewhat flat in some areas that I think a little bit of variation here and there would help. Not too much, something subtle, just to kind of get it away from that digital look and more into like real world stuff. So, and that again comes back to making sure you have your reference set up. Um, and one thing I'd like to make a note on is the lighting. So you chose this kind of like sunsetty, warm, nice kind of color for the lighting. It worked for this project, but I think overall for the piece, it kind of goes against the feel of what you're communicating with the rest of it. And remember, as an artist, you want to engage your viewer on multiple fronts. Hope you appreciate all my World War II puns there. But what you want to do with lighting is, again, this is a very depressing, dreary scene, and you want your lighting to reflect that as well, right? Um, so I would use much colder lighting. I wouldn't use warm lighting for this necessarily. I would imagine like an overcast or an approaching storm. Something that just cold, dreary, just to sell that kind of depressed, uncertain mood. You notice usually in war movies, the lighting is very desaturated, very cold. Stuff like that. Um, and that's something for you to consider as you take it to Blender after you do those passes. Although you could just take it there just to do a test. Um, Regardless, I would recommend going through that, doing some test renders on that Blender tutorial that I have for y'all on our forums. It's gonna be in the ZBrush section. You'll find it. And something else that I want to mention is the number one beauty shot. I want to see one. Well, this is a good angle, but I would love to see the same from the other angle because it has the bags and stuff, but there's just way more going on here, and I would love to see more of that. I'd love to see more of this side right here on that primary beauty shot. Um, yeah, I think that's overall what I have for you for now. Again, this is a very, very, very ambitious piece, and you've come a long way towards getting that done. So I think um, that is just a very powerful first pass, and I think that second pass is going to look even better. Remember, just like if you see me working on pieces, I always come back to it and improve it until it's ready. So I would kind of keep those notes down and come back to it whenever you get a chance, because your primary goal is to have portfolio pieces that stand out, and I think this very much has the potential to be that. It just needs to be done. All right. Yes, overall, great work so far. I hope you're having a great break, and we'll catch you next semester. Be well, and Merry Christmas.